Good afternoon, everyone. If you would like to take your seats, we will begin this session. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Angela Woodward. I'm Deputy Director of the Verification Research Training and Information Centre, VERTIC, a non-governmental organisation in London working on verification and monitoring. I'm also a member of the Asia Pacific Leadership Network for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, and I'm your moderator for this panel on cybersecurity. We're all aware that cyber attacks are becoming more persistent, more damaging, and certainly higher profile. We're reading about them in the press practically every day. Okay. They're involving a wider range of actors and targets, including critical infrastructure, governments, and non-state groups, including the private sector and terrorist groups. They have wide-ranging objectives, including financial crime, espionage, and permanent damage to critical infrastructure. A lot of issues to consider. This is the first time that the Jeju Forum has considered the issue of cybersecurity as its own panel, so the intention today is very much to give an introduction to this very broad set of issues, this very topical range of issues. And our four expert speakers will provide insights into the global, regional and national context of cybersecurity. So first of all, I will introduce all four of my speakers before they each give their presentations. Our first speaker this afternoon is Mr. Brian Egan. Mr. Stuart Baker, who is listed in the program, was unable to join us, unfortunately. But we are very pleased to have Mr. Brian Egan in his place. Mr. Egan is the former legal advisor to the US Secretary of State, John Kerry, and as such, the chief legal advisor at the US Department of State. And in particular, he advised on the evolving laws concerning cybersecurity and cyber hacking in the United States. He has also served in the White House. And Mr. Egan is going to give us an overview of cybersecurity from an American perspective. Next, we have Ambassador Paul Meyer. Ambassador Meyer is former Director General of the Security and Intelligence Bureau at the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of Canada, but I know him from his time as the former Canadian Ambassador to the Conference on Disarmament, including our time together working on the Biological Weapons Convention about 10 years ago. And Ambassador Meyer is going to speak on cyber threats to nuclear security, again a very topical issue. Next, we are very privileged to have Professor Jia Daozhong, Professor in the Department of International Political Economy at Peking University, and he will speak on cybersecurity from a Chinese perspective. And finally, we have Professor Im Jong-in, Professor in the Graduate School of Information Security at Korea University and former Senior Advisor to the President for Cybersecurity, who will give us an overview of cybersecurity on the Korean Peninsula. So now please join me in welcoming Mr. Brian Egan to give his talk.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to the East Asia Foundation for allowing me to participate and to provide a United States perspective on cybersecurity. I'm very happy to be here. I recently joined a U.S. law firm called Steptoe & Johnson, but before that, for 7 years, I worked on cybersecurity as an international lawyer for President Obama and for Secretary Kerry, both of whom saw cybersecurity as a critically important U.S. national security and foreign policy issue. And they both devoted significant time to advancing U.S. cybersecurity policy and objectives. So I will talk to you today about three things. First, what we know about President Trump's cybersecurity policy. Second, what private industry is doing in the United States in response to recent cybersecurity incidents. And third, regional and global issues that will impact U.S. cybersecurity policy going forward. I will start with President Trump's policy on cybersecurity. This was something that was talked about at some length in the U.S. presidential campaign, where the president expressed concerns with U.S. cybersecurity readiness. A few weeks ago, the president issued an executive order on cybersecurity that provides some clarity on the current U.S. policy. First, this executive order takes steps to improve the cybersecurity of the U.S. government's own computer systems. For example, the order requires that all U.S. government agencies work towards a single unified approach to securing U.S. government computer networks. This would be a first, as currently the government is divided from agency to agency in how they approach cybersecurity. Second, President Trump's executive order requires the U.S. government to take additional steps to improve the cybersecurity defenses of critical infrastructure in the United States, such as banks and other financial institutions, power companies, and the like. And then third, President Trump's executive order affirms that the United States must continue to work with foreign allies and other partners to deter cyber attacks. All of these goals are largely consistent with the policies followed by the last U.S. administration under President Obama. And so, unlike some other areas of U.S. policy, U.S. cybersecurity policy appears to be in a steady state under President Trump as compared to the last administration. Turning now to U.S. private industry, the recent WannaCry cyber attack has intensified discussions and calls from U.S. industry about the need for better coordination between the U.S. government and industry on cybersecurity issues. Based on my own personal experience, I would characterize the relationship on cybersecurity between the U.S. government and U.S. technology companies as an uneasy partnership. On the one hand, U.S. industry and the U.S. government share the goal of promoting an open internet, free trade, and a level playing field for technology companies overseas. On the other hand, many U.S. technology firms believe that the U.S. government must do far more to cooperate with industry on issues like software vulnerabilities that are known to U.S. government officials. Microsoft very publicly came out about this issue in the wake of the WannaCry attack. Microsoft has also called for a new treaty, what they call a Digital Geneva Convention, under which governments would agree to identify known software vulnerabilities to industry. U.S. industry also remains sensitive to criticisms, including international criticisms, that it has too close of a relationship with the U.S. government. Many of you will remember Apple's public fight with the Federal Bureau of Investigation last year over an FBI request to decrypt an iPhone, which Apple refused to comply with. This is just one example of U.S. industry standing up more and more to U.S. government requests for cooperation on cyber issues. Now turning to global and regional issues impacting U.S. cybersecurity policy. I'd like to highlight two developments that are worth watching further in 2017. First is the introduction of new data breach laws overseas and how these laws might impact U.S. and foreign multinational companies' approach to cybersecurity. In particular, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which goes into effect next year, could potentially have a dramatic effect on how U.S. private industry approaches data breaches. Under the GDPR, companies that offer products and services in the European Union must notify EU government authorities within 72 hours of any personal data breach. Companies that fail to comply with this law could be subject to penalties and damages claims. While the specifics remain to be worked out, this law could dramatically change how companies that do business in the EU work with governments on cybersecurity incidents. For example, in the U.S., there is currently no law that requires disclosure of all such cyber breaches to national authorities. It will be interesting to see whether American, Asian, and other multinational companies that do business in the EU adjust their breach notification practices worldwide to account for this new EU law, the GDPR. Finally, I'd like to spend a minute talking about international agreements, treaties, and cybersecurity. Multilateral treaties like the TPP are not a very popular topic with my current government, but as an international lawyer, they're very near and dear to my own heart. Cybersecurity has played a heightened role in trade and investment treaty negotiations. The TPP, for example, would prohibit states from asking for source code from foreign software companies that sell software overseas. Cybersecurity could also be a critical issue in the upcoming NAFTA renegotiation. Will United States negotiators seek new measures to promote the free flow of data overseas, to prohibit local data storage requirements, or to protect source code, all of which were part of the discussions under the TPP? Cybersecurity has also played a critical part in bilateral discussions between the U.S. and other major powers in recent years. In 2015, President Xi of China and President Obama reached an important agreement prohibiting the two governments from conducting cyber theft of intellectual property to provide competitive advantages to national businesses. Given President Trump's avowed preference for bilateral agreements, it will be interesting to see whether the United States continues to engage with China and other major powers on cybersecurity issues of bilateral significance. And finally, the work of the United Nations and its group of governmental experts on information and communications technologies is also worth watching in 2017. This group was formed in 2014 to identify potential international norms for responsible state behavior in cyberspace. Its first report in 2015 indicated some agreement amongst participants, which included the United States, China, Russia, Korea, and others, that rules of international law do apply in cyberspace. The report also suggests that most states agree that certain targets, financial institutions, and other critical infrastructure should be off limits from state-sponsored cyber attacks. The UN group of government experts will publish another report later this year, and I recommend that this audience follow those proceedings carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming Paul Meyer to give his presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Angela. My topic was cyber threats to nuclear security. And unless you've been leading a hermit's existence over the last couple of years, you will be aware of the exponential growth in the magnitude and sophistication of cyber attacks. It has become routine in daily media reporting to learn of yet another breach of computer systems and the compromise of data, often amounting to tens of millions of personal accounts. Now, while most of these attacks can be attributed to cyber criminals motivated by financial gain, there are also state-conducted or state-sponsored attacks in pursuit of strategic political and military objectives. Under the category of state-conducted cyber operations, we need to distinguish between intelligence-gathering operations that aim at obtaining information without detection, ideally, and offensive cyber operations intended to disrupt, damage, or destroy systems and or data. Within the last decade, there has been a marked militarization of cyberspace, with more and more armed forces establishing dedicated cyber commands and developing capabilities for both defensive and notably offensive capabilities and operations. What does this capacity for especially offensive cyber operations represent for maintaining nuclear security? To answer this question, I think we first have to unpack the term nuclear security and recognize the distinct risks raised for the civilian and the military sector. In part because of the saliency of the series of nuclear security summits initiated by the U.S. under the Obama administration from 2010 to 2016, nuclear security has tended to be interpreted and focus on only the civilian nuclear sector and the facilities and fissile material associated with that. Among the threats to this sector are clearly cyber ones, and there have already been a number of cyber attacks directed against civilian nuclear facilities. The intent of those behind these attacks is not always evident, although the damage that would be caused by a cessation of electrical power generation, or even worse, a cyber-enabled reactor meltdown or release of radioactive material, would be clear to all. Unfortunately, for those wishing to see a peaceful cyberspace, a Rubicon of sorts has already been crossed with respect to cyber attacks against civilian nuclear facilities, with the launch sometime before 2010 of the Stuxnet payload against an Iranian uranium enrichment plant. This sophisticated cyber weapon brought about the physical damage of the centrifuges engaged in the enrichment process and constituted a precedent for others that might wish to disrupt or destroy facilities involved in nuclear programs they happen to oppose. It is unrealistic, however, to assume that cyber attacks will be confined to the civilian sector. Despite claims of superior cyber defenses in the military, there have been serious cyber attacks against this sector too. The so-called insider threat became evident recently with deliberate massive leaks of classified material, but there's also the risk of an unwitting accomplices enabling a cyber intrusion, such as the 2008 incident of the penetration of a classified and air-gapped computer system in the U.S. military command. Such incidents put a premium on having multi-layered cyber defenses and system resiliency in place to prevent or at least limit the damage of cyber intrusions. The potential for cyber attacks against the most sensitive realm of the military nuclear sector, I'm referring to nuclear deterrent forces, has also recently been acknowledged. A former U.S. missile launch officer, Bruce Blair, has written recently about the potential vulnerability of U.S. strategic nuclear forces to cyber attack. Blair in particular relates an incident in 2010 when 50 nuclear-armed Minuteman ICBMs, quote, disappeared from launching crew monitors for nearly an hour, end of quote, with those crews being in the dark as to whether a technical malfunction was responsible or whether a deliberate act of cyber sabotage had occurred. When these occurrences are considered alongside the known close call incidents when faulty early warning alerts and or system errors might have led to the launch of nuclear retaliatory forces, it is only prudent to acknowledge a risk exists that merits close attention. And indeed, the chairman's summary from the recently concluded NPT Preparatory Committee meeting in Vienna noted, and I quote, concerns regarding the risks of unintended nuclear detonations, including as a result of any vulnerability of the technology used in nuclear weapon systems to cyber attacks. End of citation. When one adds to this picture the reality that much of the early warning systems employed by nuclear weapon powers are space-based and therefore dependent on cyber-enabled downlinks and uplinks, an additional cyber vulnerability appears. What might be the consequences if cyber attackers were able to manipulate early warning data from satellites or ground stations to generate false indicators of an imminent attack? Bruce Blair reminds us that both the U.S. and Russia keep large numbers of deployed strategic missiles on a high alert status, with decision makers required to come to judgments regarding possible retaliation within a matter of minutes. The potential for catastrophe with respect to nuclear forces in light of the enlarged cyber threat has led Blair and others to advocate the elimination of U.S. ICBMs, their de-alerting, and the abandonment of launch on warning policies. Given, of course, the greater levers of transparency in the United States, we know more about these cyber nuclear developments than is the case with other major nuclear powers such as Russia and China. But we have to anticipate that they too have experienced similar accidents, malfunctions, and misadventures. So how has the international system responded to the emerging cyber threat to nuclear security and the risks of cyber warfare in general? In short, it is responding in a slow and rather tentative manner, and military cyber developments have largely outpaced diplomatic action to prevent or at least moderate interstate conflict in cyberspace. Part of the explanation for this is the novel nature of cyberspace and operations within it that differs from the readily discernible effects and clear attribution possible in the conventional military actions. Even the question of how to properly characterize a cyber attack in the current international legal context remains problematic. I recall the November 24, 2014 attack on Sony Pictures US, which involved mass release of company emails, and US responsible agencies, the FBI and the Director of National Intelligence, concluded that North Korea was to blame. The North Korean government was to blame for the attack. A clear characterization of the attack, however, remained elusive, with President Obama at times appearing to treat it as a hostile action against which the U.S. would, quote, respond proportionally in the place, time, and manner of our choosing, yet on another occasion describing it merely as a case of, quote, cyber vandalism. Some of this confusion is understandable, as the cyber attack was directed not against the U.S. government, but against a private company, indeed one headquartered in another country, and for which the damage was essentially confined to the company's reputation and that of some of its leading executives. So given the combination of both serious threats and the lack of a firm consensus in international law as to how cyber conflict should be limited, it's imperative to accelerate the development of norms of responsible state behavior in cyberspace. Such norms will need at first to take the form of voluntary, politically binding confidence-building measures. Their intent would be to increase transparency and predictability in state conduct of cyber operations and encourage, ideally, mutual restraint with a view to conflict prevention. Many states see the merit of agreeing on such measures. And as Brian has already noted, there's been a UN group of governmental experts, actually a series of those UN GGE reports, including in 2010, 2013, and the most recent in 2015. And they have generated several recommendations, including greater exchange of threat information, cooperation on remedial measures. It points a little bit to the Microsoft call for states to reveal and to the private industry vulnerabilities that they discover rather than harboring them to exploit them in their own cyber operations. And there's also been, in the last report, specific recommendations for restraint measures that would, in essence, prohibit cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, against computer emergency response teams, in a way to mirror the protective status that humanitarian actors enjoy under the provisions of the laws of armed conflict, otherwise known as international humanitarian law. But there are issues here too. National definitions of what constitutes critical infrastructure differ considerably. Interestingly, the U.S. Iteration didn't include electoral systems until it had to be amended in light of the events of late 2016. And nuclear facilities have not necessarily always been included in the enumerations of critical infrastructure. So here, I think it would only be logical that there is a early agreement that nuclear facilities should explicitly be included on a null target list for any offensive cyber operation. The G8 states have been supportive of the proposed confidence building measures I referred to, but to date they remain only recommendations of a UN experts group, and it will take much more concerted and purposeful multilateral action for states to actually agree to adopt and implement such suggestions for state cyber behavior. I think there's a fundamental logic in continuing to pursue the elaboration of global norms at the UN level, given the inherently global nature of cyber activity. It is in the interests of both international cybersecurity and global nuclear security that this effort at norm setting and the negotiation of confidence building measures proceeds more rapidly. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Meyer. We now turn to Professor Jia to give his remarks on cybersecurity, a Chinese perspective. Please join me in welcoming Professor Jia.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry you have to bear the blackout. Let me begin by saying that I'm nothing more than a scholar, and the fact that I'm here rather than someone else reflects a particular difficulty. It's not political, it's actually rather begins with language in Chinese and foreign dialogues, conversations about these matters. You see, cyber, the word comes from cybernetics. If you look in most Chinese dictionaries, cybernetics is translated as 控制论. It has nothing to do with the kind of emotion, the security, what was said as theft or what else. Most Chinese simply don't get it. What you folks call cyber issue is known in Chinese either as 信息, that's data, information, or 网络, that's network, the maintenance part of it. So I'm a professor of political science. Okay, if I can go just one more word about the language issue. That's where you have most of the conversations simply get lost. Americans were very excited about debating whether it's pivot to Asia or it's rebalance. You go to a Chinese dictionary, what does pivot mean? It has one meaning and one meaning only. It's the joint that links the door to the frame. So I want to get that straight, but I do teach these matters. I represent nobody but myself. How do I go to the next page? How do I go to the next page? No? Yeah, that's what I did. Well, in the interest of time, I just go ahead. You see, whenever the word China and cyber gets put together in today's international policy environment, discussion environment, it's a very toxic combination. And my purpose is not here to add more vinegar to the juice. Rather, I want to remind ourselves that there are many, at least 5 here, possible ways to frame cyber in cross-national contexts. First and foremost is safety. And different nation states, governments, or what else, have a negative incentive to cooperate because you don't want your system to fail. And that will come with economic and other types of loss. And second is crime. Now, cyber crime, when it comes to China, becomes particularly difficult, in which many Chinese or Chinese government may take political messaging, including that by Chinese dissidents overseas, as a punishable crime. But this gets celebrated, protected, or even supported overseas. And even when you have cybercrime that's pure money laundering or phone fraud, for example, internet fraud, as we have had in recent months, you got Taiwanese passport holders and Chinese, the mainland wants the Taiwanese to be repatriated to China to face justice, but then many governments don't want to cooperate with that. So it's that kind of complexity that may or may not begin with cyber, but that's part of the kind of international ecology we see from within China. Next slide, please. No, go. So the third way to frame this is it's a market, and there are issues about a leveling playing field for investment, reciprocity in investment rules or national security reviews. As the day after tomorrow, I believe, or tomorrow, China is going to implement its new cybersecurity law. Foreign companies operate in China will be required to surrender their source codes. So you will have these issues that are best left to lawyers, but nevertheless, there is a cyber market issue. And then there is cybersecurity. You need not to go and enlist them. That involves defense, national defense, or civil military relationships when you have to deal with companies that, especially when you have what amounts to private military companies that do the work of cyber attack. So it's a very complicated situation. Now, let's move on, please. Now, internationally, we do have to deal with cyber governance. We talk about rules, we talk about cooperation, we talk about commitments. And let me remind ourselves, the international rule is the sort of WTO that governs the cyber today, right? Was done in the 80s. We are 30 years behind. The International Telecommunications Union tried to update a set of rules in Dubai in 2012, but then immediately this was portrayed as a Cold War type two camps. One cybersecurity, the other so-called multiple stakeholders. So we are left without international rules or updated rules. Let's be very realistic about it here. Today, the whole notion cyber sovereignty is painted as so undesirable. It's worse than nuclear science or it's multi-stakeholders. And frankly speaking, many of us ask a question: what's the end goal of diplomacy? Is it eventually the winner, in this case, winner of technology and winner in framing international rhetoric, especially in the English language, going to take it all? Go up, please. Now, when you look at from China, many Chinese now look at no, wait. You flipped too fast. Many Chinese are telling our cyber governance people, government folks, say, hey, I told you so. Because from the very beginning, there was a long debate for several years that ended in 1993, whether or not China should be connected to the Trans-Pacific network. Until winter 1993, a connection was made between Qingdao and Incheon and also Nanhui and Miyazaki, Japan. Of course, you had the expansion in 2006 for doing all that. But nevertheless, the Chinese government or Chinese cyber governance, from the very beginning, we never really had this rosy picture of cyber being emancipation, liberation, everything good. We never had that. We had golden shield, just as we started to develop a national internet network. But regardless, China is a beneficiary of the global expansion of cyber markets, and internet spread is an enabler of China's growth, although we certainly don't share, at least government policy as of now, this notion of that you introduce cyber to China to use these open networks to open those so-called closed regimes. So we do also see limitations in a systematic way when you talk about international collaboration. Very much similar to China's space program, people come to talk about strategic trust first. So you have an ambivalence on both sides, not just on the Chinese side. Next slide, please. Now, there are some issues involving cyber between China and the United States. Should I say, there is a change of attitude. Back in 1997 and 1994, actually, it was U.S. Department of Defense that enabled China's first undersea cable connection through the Pacific. But now that's a very different situation. We understand that. But let's bear in mind that maintenance of cybersecurity safety, I use the word safety here, is a boutique issue. It's understandable to those who code it, those who maintain it. Outside that realm of practice, few people understand what's really going on, especially when it comes to attribution. Next, please. Hey, you're always one step ahead of me. I would think between China and the United States, as it's true between China and Korea and many other societies, there are any number of issues. Access, deal with crime, espionage, or warfare issues. So it's quite sort of standard. The last one, please. So by way of ending the opening remarks I make, let me remind ourselves that cyber-related issues inspire a lot of imagination, but it's also very powerful for the American society because, frankly speaking, this is the only way America can get really hurt. If you look at throughout the United States' 200-year history, the only party that actually brought any real damage to the United States thus far is the Bin Laden group. Cyber comes readily. The Americans' imagination is rather rich. But for us in China, my goodness, cyber is probably one of the last things we have to worry about in terms of a foreign source of instability or threat. We have numerous other issues with our neighbors with, the chaotic situation. But at the same time, the ecologies of the cyber use and development are quite diverse in any society. To define neat characterizations are either cooperation or competition. And like the kind of dichotomy, whether it's multiple stakeholder or sovereignty, the kind of Cold War type of thing never gets anywhere. And then what the US and China, if we really have a responsibility, in addition to safeguarding safety for ourselves and getting past bilateral agreements implemented, is to think about what we can do to move forward this cyber governance issue worldwide. Again, let me try to end by again saying that it's too much of a regret that the effort by the International Telecommunications Union under the UN framework in Dubai failed in the way it did. And nobody ever seems to bother to go back. But then we keep talking that needs to be rule-based. Isn't that an irony? Thank you. Oh.
Thank you very much, Professor Jha. Please now welcome Professor Im on cybersecurity on the Korean Peninsula.
Good afternoon. I am Jong-in Im from Korea University. I'll speak in Korean, please. Next slide. 저는 한국말로 하겠습니다. 지난 5월 18일 날 그 워너크라이라고 하는 랜섬웨어가 전 세계를 강타했습니다. 워낙 전 세계적으로 큰 이슈를 불러일으켰기 때문에 대부분 분들이 아셨겠지만 이 워너크라이라고 하는 랜섬웨어는 전 세계 150개국에서 20만 대 이상의 컴퓨터를 갖다가 감염시켰습니다. 사실 이 랜섬웨어의 경우에는 랜섬웨어라는 것은 아시는 것처럼 랜섬이라고 하는 것은 인지를 잡은 다음에 요구하는 몸값입니다. 그 웨어는 멀웨어, 악성 코드 둘의 합성 언어서 랜섬웨어입니다. 이 랜섬웨어는 보통 어떤 자료를 갖다가 암호화시킨 다음에 이 암호화시킨 것을 풀어주는 조건으로 돈을 요구하는 그런 전형적인 사이버 크라임입니다. 이 사이버 크라임의 경우에 전 세계적으로 엄청난 돈이 오고 가고 있고, 예를 들면 우리 사우스 코리아의 경우에는 작년 1년 동안 랜섬웨어에 감염돼서 몸값으로 지불한 돈이 10 밀리언 US 달러 정도로 추정되고 있습니다. 이것이 가능한 이유는 이번에 워너크라이 어떤 랜섬웨어 이 범인들도 비트코인으로 지불할 걸 요구했습니다. 이 비트코인의 경우에는 추적이 불가능한 그러한 전자화폐이기 때문에 이것을 이용해서 전자화폐를 이용해서 하고 있는데 우리나라의 경우에는 주로 당하는 곳이 노스코리아입니다. 이번의 경우에 워너크라이 랜섬웨어를 누가 이것을 갖다 제작했느냐에 대해서 여러 가지 설이 있었지만 일단 이것에 대해서 제일 먼저 시만텍이라고 하는 미국의 세계적인 사이버 보안 회사에서 이것이 노스코리아로 추정된다. 그리고 그 이후에 카스퍼스키라고 하는 러시아의 사이버 시큐리티 스페셜리스트들이 여기에 대해서 역시 그것을 확인해 줬습니다. 그러면 이제 사실은 사이버의 문제에 있어서 가장 중요한 어려운 문제가 뭐냐? 저는 사실 여기 계신 다른 분들하고 달리 저는 테크니션입니다. 지난 30년 동안 이 사이버 시큐리티를 갖다가 연구해 본 관점에서 의하면 과연 이 인터넷이라고 하는 것이 사실은 처음 만들어졌을 때 익명성에 바탕한 정보의 어떤 자유로운 흐름, 공유 이것을 갖다가 기초하고 만들었기 때문에 사실은 이러한 어떤 익명성을 악용한 이러한 사이버 범죄를 저질렀을 때 이것을 과연 추적하는 것이 가능할 것이냐. 특히 대부분의 경우에 우리가 이제 추적을 할 때는 보면 IP라고 하는 걸 추적합니다. IP를 추적할 때 이것은 VPN이라든지 토르와 같은 여러 가지 방법을 써가지고 IP를 갖다가 론드링, 세탁하는 것이 가능하기 때문에 IP를 추적해서 이것이 노스코리아의 경우에는 평양에서 대개 공격을 한다든지 아니면 그들의 일부가 북한 쪽, 중국 쪽으로 넘어와서 단둥이라든지 이렇게 그 중국과 노스코리아 가까운 곳에서 공격을 하기 때문에 거기 IP 주소가 찍힌다고 해서 그것이 IP 얼마든지 세탁할 수 있는데 북한이라고 인정할 수 있느냐 이런 반박을 보통 하곤 합니다. 그런데 사실은 지금 기술은 엄청나게 발전해 있습니다. 지난주에 사실은 한국에서는 중국에서 커제라고 하는 어떤 세계 1위의 어떤 바둑계의 황제하고 알파고 2.0과 어떤 그 세계 바둑 대결이 있었습니다. 작년 1년 전에 이세돌이라고 하는 지난날의 어떤 바둑 황제와 구글의 알파고 사이에 어떤 그 바둑 대결이 있었는데 많은 사람들은 바둑이라고 하는 것은 워낙 그 어떤 심오하고 복잡한 게임이기 때문에 아마 알파고가 질 것이다 이렇게 생각을 했는데 예상을 깨고 이세돌이 4대1로 완패했습니다. 올해의 경우에는 커제의 경우는 워낙 또 현재 챔피언이고 그렇기 때문에 커제가 승산이 혹시 있을까 했는데 그 결과는 여러분이 다 아시는 것처럼 3대0으로 커제가 완패했습니다. 기술의 발전은 지금 놀라울 정도로 빠르게 진행되고 있고 1년 전에 알파고 1.0에 비해서 현재 1년 후에 알파고 2.0은 역량이 30배 정도 커졌다고 합니다. 보통 우리 기술자들이 어떤 이것이 노스코리아라고 추정할 때는 근거가 뭐냐 이렇게 많은 분들이 묻습니다. 기술자들은 많은 어떤 이번의 경우에 처음에 이 해킹 기법을 보니까 해킹 기법이라든지 여러 가지를 보니까 라자로 그룹이라고 하는 해커들의 집단이라고 우리가 예상했습니다. 왜 그렇게 했느냐 하면 일단 그 머리셔스 코드, 엑스플로이트, 악성 코드를 갖다가 분석을 하면 거기에는 우리가 핑거프린트와 같은 코드 지문이 있습니다. 그걸 위조하는 게 가능하지 않냐. 하지만 사실은 기술자들이 코딩을 할 때는 자기도 모르는 사이에 어떤 그 기법들이 있습니다. 그 기법들이 있기 때문에 그것을 갖다가 다른 사람의 걸 완전히 받아들여서 위조하는 건 불가능합니다. 그렇기 때문에 자기도 모르는 사이에 긴 수천 라인의 코드를 갖다 작성하다 보면 어떤 그 핑거프린트가 나오게 되는데 이런 경우에 이번의 경우에는 라자로 그룹의 어떤 코드 기법들이 상당히 많이 나왔기 때문에 이번 악성 코드가 나오자마자 이것은 라자로 그룹. 근데 라자로 그룹은 왜 유명해졌냐면 아까 말씀하신 것처럼 메이어 대사님 말씀하신 것처럼 2014년에 미국의 소니 해킹 사건이 있었습니다. 소니 해킹 사건의 경우에는 미국 인텔리전스하고 한국 인텔리전스가 굉장히 클로즈 릴레이션십에서 커퍼레이션을 해가지고 그것이 노스코리아의 어떤 그 크라임이라는 것을 갖다 밝혀냈던 그런 사건입니다. 그렇기 때문에 이번의 경우에 일단 코드 분석에 의해서 이것이 노스코리아의 짓이구나 하고 강하게 추정했습니다. 이렇게 강하게 추정한 다음에 두 번째 할 것은 이것이 IP 추적이 가능하지만 이것이 노스코리아가 라자로 그룹이 보통 이러한 일단 서버를 갖다 감염시킨 다음에 그 서버에서 악성 코드를 퍼뜨리는데 주로 많이 사용했던 서버들이 있습니다. 그 서버들을 갖다 추적해서 그 중에 하나가 폴란드에 있는 CNC 서버를 찾아냈는데 그 CNC 서버를 폴란드 당국과 협력을 해서 분석을 했더니 거기에서 노스코리아가 사용한 IP가 3번 찍혔습니다. 보통은 이론적으로는 IP 세탁이 완벽하게 가능하다고 봅니다. 그렇지만 현실적으로 보면 어떤 네트워크상에 있어서 기술적인 한계라든지 속도 문제라든지 여러 가지 때문에 완벽한 세탁은 불가능하고요. 보통 한 1000번 정도 시도를 하면 그중에 2-3번 정도는 실 IP가 찍힙니다. 예를 들면 이따 얘기를 하겠지만 2013년에 한국의 국영방송인 KBS가 해킹을 당했습니다. 그 경우에 한국 당국에서 3개월 동안 조사를 한 결과 노스코리아의 짓으로 우리가 결론을 내렸는데 그 경우 보면 2013년 3월 20일 날 공격이 시작됐지만 조사를 해보니 그 전해인 2012년 2월 28일 이미 노스코리아의 악성 코드가 KBS 서버에 침투해 있었습니다. 그들이 처음 한 것은 KBS에 대한 어떤 네트워크 구성도라든지 직원 명단이라든지 협력업체 명단이라든지 이런 걸 구해가지고 공격 시나리오를 짜고 그 다음에 공격 코드, 멀리셔스 코드를 만든 다음에 침투시킨 다음에 그것을 갖다가 계속해서 개선해 나갔습니다. 그 사이에 2012년 6월 28일부터 2013년 3월 20일 사이에 1580회 침입했습니다. 1580회 침입했는데 그중에 3번 북한 IP가 찍혔습니다. 그것은 어떤 기술적인 한계입니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리는 그런 것과 그 다음에 IP와 그 다음에 어떤 기술적인 분석을 통해서 노스코리아의 어떤 범행으로 우리가 단정을 했었습니다. 이번의 경우에도 말씀드린 건 러시아의 카스퍼스키, 미국의 시만테, 그리고 여러 어떤 인텔리전스 기관들의 공조에 의해서 이 워너크라이 랜섬웨어는 북한의 짓으로 나왔습니다. 근데 이번의 경우에 보면 영국의 병원이 지장을 받고 독일의 자동차 공장이 지장을 받고 프랑스의 레일로드 서비스가 지장을 받았습니다. 이것은 뭐를 얘기하냐면 우리가 랜섬웨어든 이러한 다양한 사이버 공격이 어떤 단순한 사이버 세프트나 사이버 인텔리전스를 넘어서서 크리티컬 인프라스트럭처를 공격함으로써 어떤 사회의 어떤 세이프티 그리고 국가의 사이버 시큐리티 안보를 갖다가 위협하는 수준으로 발전돼 있다는 것을 갖다 알 수 있습니다. 이렇기 때문에 이 사이버 문제는 이제는 국가 안보 문제, 사이버 안보 문제가 됐고 그렇기 때문에 굉장히 어떤 국가 간에 있어서 중요한 문제가 되었고 그렇지만 이것은 이번 워너크라이 사태에서 본 것처럼 한 국가의 힘만으로는 할 수 없고 여러 나라의 어떤 컬래버레이션 이것에 의해서 해결될 수 있고 또한 국가의 힘으로만 할 수 없고 이것은 민간 쪽 특히 어떤 시빌 쪽에 여러 가지 민간 쪽의 어떤 기업들이 많은 데이터베이스를 가지고 있기 때문에 민간과 국가 간의 협력이 매우 중요하다는 것을 보여주고 있는 그런 사례입니다. 다음. 이것은 또한 미국에서 결론을 내렸는데 작년도 스위프트망이라고 하는 전 세계 금융기관들 사이에 있어서 어떤 머니 트랜스퍼를 위한 망이 있습니다. 이 스위프트망이 있죠. 이 스위프트망이 작년 2월 달에 해킹을 당했습니다. 방글라데시 중앙은행의 스위프트망이 해킹당해서 뉴욕 중앙은행에 예치되어 있는 방글라데시 중앙은행의 8,100만 불이 필리핀으로 트랜스퍼 됐던 사건입니다. 이 경우에 초기에 등장하자마자 그 악성 코드를 분석함으로써 그 당시 시만테 시마텍은 이것은 북한의 짓인 것 같다. 이렇게 얘기했습니다. 올해 4월 달에 어떤 1년간에 걸친 IP 추적을 통해 가지고 카스퍼스키가 역시 이것은 노스코리아의 짓이라고 결론을 내렸고 미국에서는 이것과 관련된 여러 범인들을 갖다가 기소하겠다고 발표했습니다. 이 경우에 더욱 이제 충격적인 것은 어떤 국가가 어떤 특히 북한의 경우에는 외화 부족에 많이 시달리고 있기 때문에 경제적인 목적으로 어떤 해적 짓을 한 것입니다. 이것은 어떤 시장 경제, 자유 경제에 굉장히 위협이 되는 것이고 이런 사태를 통해서 이런 사이버 공격이라는 것이 전통적인 인텔리전스를 넘어서 가지고 어떤 안보를 위협하고 특히 경제 안보를 위협한다. 이런 것으로 번질 수 있기 때문에 향후에 이것은 굉장히 어떤 중요한 시사점을 지니는 거라고 볼 수 있습니다. 다음. 이것은 방글라데시 사이버 세프트 이것의 과정을 보여주고 있는 거고 이 경우에 사실 1년 2개월이나 걸려서 이것이 북한의 어떤 범행이라는 것을 밝힌 것을 보면 아직도 사실은 이러한 애트리뷰션 우리가 공격이 시작됐을 때 어디서 공격이 처음 시작됐는지 공격 원점을 밝히는 것이 굉장히 기술적으로 아직도 어렵다는 것을 보여주고 있지만 그것이 불가능한 것은 아닙니다. 그리고 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 AI라든지 다양한 어떤 기술적 발전에 따라서 이것의 어떤 발견 속도는 점점 빨라지고 있습니다. 다음. 이것은 아까 말씀드린 소니 해킹 사건입니다. 이 소니 해킹 사건은 사실은 하나의 기업이지만 이 경우에 어떤 모티베이션은 소니사에서 북한의 지도자인 김정은을 갖다가 모욕적으로 묘사하는 영화를 만들었기 때문에 그것에 대한 어떤 보복으로 했던 것입니다. 그렇지만 이것은 어떤 하나의 기업이기 전에 어떤 소니라고 하는 것은 공격함으로써 우리가 민주사회에서 가장 중요한 자유인 언론의 자유, 표현의 자유에 대한 어떤 억압입니다. 그렇기 때문에 이것은 굉장히 어떤 심각하게 생각했었고 이 경우에는 미국과 한국의 인텔리전스 기관 간의 긴밀한 공조에 의해서 이것이 북한의 짓이라는 것을 알게 되었습니다. 다음. 이것에 대해서 그 당시 FBI에서는 어떤 노스코리아의 어떤 짓이라는 것을 갖다가 밝혔고 오바마 대통령은 이것을 사이버 반달리즘이라고 하고 여기에서 비례적 대응을 하겠다고 했습니다. 사실 사이버 쪽이 우리가 안보라는 문제로 되고 아까 오펜시브 사이버 오퍼레이션 말씀을 하셨는데 사이버가 사실은 최근에는 어떤 크리티컬 인프라스트럭처까지 공격할 수 있는 수준이 됐기 때문에 이것이 어떤 군사적인 측면에서 많이 활용의 유혹을 받고 있습니다. 사이버 오퍼레이션은 사이버 무기의 경우에는 이것이 값싸고 어느 정도 지식만 있으면 손쉽게 제작할 수가 있기 때문에 가난한 국가들의 사이버 핵무기라고 하고 있습니다. 그런 점에서 이것의 확산은 핵무기 확산 못지않게 굉장히 중요한 문제가 지금 되고 있는데 특히 언론에도 나왔지만 섀도우 브로커라고 하는 러시아 해커 그룹이 작년에 NSA를 해킹함으로써 그들의 어떤 사이버 무기를 갖다가 인터넷에 올해 1월 달에 공개했기 때문에 향후에 오펜시브 사이버 무기는 굉장히 확산될 것이고 이것은 어떤 전 세계 어떤 사이버 어떤 시큐리티의 어떤 안보에 커다란 위협이 될 것으로 보고 있습니다. 다음. 한국의 경우에는 북한으로부터 어떤 지난 20년 동안 굉장히 많은 공격을 당했습니다. 여기 다음. 예. 한국의 경우에는 2003년 대규모적인 어떤 DNS 서버 공격으로 한국의 인터넷이 이틀 정도 마비됐던 그런 사건이 있었고요. 최근의 경우에 보면 2013년 320 사이버 테러에서 아까 말씀드린 대로 한국의 국영 TV 방송 그리고 메이저 뱅크들이 어떤 영업에 커다란 지장을 받았고 특히 어떤 KBS라고 하는 국영 방송이 방송 중단 일보 직전까지 갔습니다. 일본의 경우에는 이 사건을 기화로 해가지고 어떤 2020년 올림픽이 지장을 받을까 우려해가지고 이 경우에 어떤 사이버 안보법도 통과시켰고 그랬지만 우리 한국의 경우에는 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 작년에 애플 vs FBI 사건에 있는 것처럼 사실은 사이버 안보를 강화하면 또 이 민간단체의 어떤 프라이버시 문제하고 컨플릭트하기 때문에 거기서 생기는 그 문제들이 있습니다. 그리고 특히 나중에 나온 2014년에 사건은 한국의 뉴클리어 파워 플랜트에 대한 노스코리아의 공격입니다. 이 경우에는 이것이 망분리, 에어갭도 돼 있는데도 불구하고 그들이 협력회사를 이용해서 그 안에 있는 그 제어망을 갖다가 공격했습니다. 이 공격함으로써 한국에 큰 충격을 줬고 이것이 만약에 그들의 위협이 공격이 성공했으면은 사실 후쿠시마 사태에서와 같은 커다란 어떤 재앙으로 이어질 뻔했기 때문에 한국에서는 충격을 많이 받았습니다. 그런데 이 경우에는 사실 경우에도 2014년 12월에 공격이 있었고 3개월간의 어떤 조사를 거쳐서 한국에서는 중국과 노스코리아의 그 국경에 있는 어떤 선양 지역에서 공격이 처음 시작되었다. 애트리뷰션은 거기서 시작되었다. 이렇게 결론을 내리고 중국 당국에 우리가 협력을 요청했습니다. 그런데 중국에서는 또 주권의 문제가 있기 때문에 중국에서 조사를 하고 나서 결론은 노스코리아가 아닌 것 같다. 이렇게 결론을 했지만 한국에서는 말씀드린 대로 여러 가지 정황 증거, 기술적 분석에 의해서 이것은 노스코리아의 짓으로 생각하고 있고 이와 같은 뉴클리어 파워 플랜트에 대한 공격은 2010년 어떤 스톡스넷 이후에 계속해서 기술적인 진보가 이루어지고 있기 때문에 향후에 어떤 뉴클리어 파워 플랜트에 대한 공격은 굉장히 위협은 심각한 걸로 생각하고 있습니다. 다음. 이렇기 때문에 이제 한국에서는 이것이 어떤 민간 쪽에 민간과 어떤 국가 간의 콜래보레이션이 매우 중요하고 그래서 전통적인 어떤 각 부처의 역할만 갖고는 할 수 없다. 그래서 지난 2015년 미국에서 오바마 대통령이 사이버 시큐리티 인포메이션 쉐어링 액트를 통해서 민간과 국가 간의 어떤 정보 공유를 한 것처럼 한국에서도 어떤 블루하우스에서 이것을 직접 관장하고 있습니다. 다음. 국제 협력이 무엇보다 중요합니다. 각국 간에 있어서 어떤 커패시티 빌딩도 중요하지만 국가 간에 있어서 협력이 중요하고 많은 국제 협력 모델이 있죠. 다음. 그 중에서 대표적인 것이 2001년에 시작된 부다페스트 사이버 크라임 컨벤션이죠. 이것의 경우에는 전 세계 70개국이 가입하고 있어서 많은 정보를 공유하고 역량을 공유하고 그런 것으로 되어 있지만 이것이 사이버 크라임을 넘어서 사이버 테러 수준으로 번지고 있기 때문에 향후에는 UNGG도 있지만 UNGG는 실질적으로는 어떤 선언적 의미에 거치고 작동을 하지 않고 있습니다. 그래서 현재 작동하고 있는 어떻게 보면 유일한 어떤 기구이기 때문에 이런 부다페스트 사이버 크라임 컨벤션의 어떤 모델이 더욱 발전되는 것이 매우 중요하다고 생각합니다. 다음. 한국에서도 이러한 것을 위해서 2013년 서울 사이버 스페이스 컨퍼런스에서 이러한 것에 대해서 많은 얘기를 했고 말씀드렸던 대로 각국의 어떤 커패시티 빌딩 그리고 각국 간에 있어서 컨피던스 빌딩 그리고 어떤 인터내셔널 커퍼레이션 이것의 중요성을 그 당시 천명했었습니다. 다음. 그래서 커패시티 빌딩을 위해서는 각국이 어떤 거버넌스 체계를 잘 갖추고 어떤 각국의 R&D를 통해서 기술적 역량을 갖추고 많은 경우에는 어떤 그 사이버 문맹자들의 어떤 사이버에 대한 인식 부족을 이용해서 공격이 이루어지고 있기 때문에 인식 제거를 위한 에듀케이션이 중요하고 또한 국가 간에 있어서 그리고 민간과 어떤 국가 간에 있어서 협력이 매우 중요합니다. 다음. 마지막 슬라이드입니다. 결론적으로 사이버 위협은 우리가 요즘에 4차 산업혁명이라는 얘기를 많이 하고 있는데 여러 가지 측면으로 사이버 위협은 크리티컬 인프라스트럭처를 공격할 만큼 굉장히 중요해지고 커지고 있습니다. 그리고 우리 사회는 4차 산업혁명이라는 데서 볼 수 있듯이 ICT에 대한 디펜던시가 커지고 있습니다. 이 문제를 안보 문제로 된 이걸 해결하기 위해서는 국가 간의 어떤 협력 그리고 커패시티 빌딩 이것이 무엇보다 중요하다고 생각합니다. 이상 마치겠습니다. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation, Professor. Right, I would now like to just ask a question for each of our presenters before asking the more general questions. Brian, I think we're very used to seeing incidents of cyber attacks in the US in the media. We're very much aware of US efforts at the national level to seek to prevent those, particularly through your legislation. I'm particularly interested in US laws responding to the US laws were developed very much with the goal of responding to these actual threats, not just perceived threats. So they sought to dive quite deeply into private information, and we saw very much with the Patriot Act, a program to collect telephone records and other digital information. Parts of that expired in May 2015, but were replaced with the USA Freedom Act. Now, civil libertarians would say that some of these US measures go too far in invading privacy. How do you think states can build confidence in the public that these sorts of intrusive national legislation to gather intelligence is actually necessary?
I think it's a very difficult issue in the United States. Angela, you mentioned the passage of the USA Freedom Act in 2015. That was a law that was passed in the wake of the Edward Snowden leaks, and it really led to a debate within America on whether intrusive intelligence measures were necessary and whether they went too far on the side of individual privacy. That law did result in some reforms to the Patriot Act that limit the ability of U.S. intelligence agencies to collect certain information. It made the processes more transparent of the courts that review and approve applications to use those authorities. But those same debates go on. There's another debate that will go on this year and next on another authority that's up for renewal in U.S. law, which is Section 702 of the Patriot Act, where you have U.S. lawmakers, an unusual alliance of some Republicans and Democrats who are expressing concerns about the individual liberties aspects of renewing that authority. So I think that transparency in the United States, at least to the extent it's possible, about the uses of these authorities, how often they're used, by whom, for what purpose, what are the limits of usage, what permissible sources might there be for uses of these intelligence authorities are very important for ensuring as much public confidence as possible that these authorities are being used responsibly.
Andrew, I have a comment on that. Just to note, there was a rather important, and I think underreported, unanimous resolution back in 2012 of the UN Human Rights Council which was later endorsed by the General Assembly as a whole, that affirmed that people's rights online had to be respected in the same way that they had to be offline. And it set, I think, an important reference point for looking at these matters going forward. There was also, in the wake of maybe some of the unpleasant diplomatic repercussions of the Snowden revelations, particularly vis-a-vis the apparent surveillance on the personal phones of foreign leaders, but notably the Brazilian president and the German chancellor, and perhaps not surprisingly, those two countries then took the lead on a resolution again in the UN General Assembly about the rights to privacy in the digital era. One aspect of which was to, in fact, request the Special Rapporteur of the UN on freedom of expression to look at what would be reasonable approaches to respecting the rights of privacy while acknowledging that there were obligations the states had to combat terrorism and to protect public safety. And I would recommend if anyone is interested in this area to take a look at it, because I thought, in fact, the rapporteur had some very good recommendations, in short, putting an emphasis on oversight mechanisms within states to ensure that it wasn't just the executive, in a way, making these calls, but there's, I mean, that is very, that was only one kind of core recommendation. But just to say that these are, I think, inherently tricky issues, but I think there have also been some impressive and indeed consensual declarations and determinations from the international community that could help guide the individual states in fashioning something that respects that balance between two important objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ambassador Meyer, if I may turn to you again. Your presentation made a very clear need for effective cybersecurity. And I would like to ask you about how less developed countries, which are arguably more vulnerable to attack by becoming unwitting targets, hosting further attacks on other states and so on, how they might mitigate the risks. And in fact, following on from our Asia-Pacific Leadership Network meeting where we discussed nuclear threats, measures to enhance nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, and as the goal of our meeting here is to enhance peace and prosperity. And I'm wondering your views on, with the expansion of civilian nuclear power programs, including in developing countries, how well do you feel that they are prepared to mitigate the cyber threats to their nuclear infrastructure and nuclear materials to make sure that that we maintain a peaceful and prosperous world where states can have access to nuclear energy but keep their facilities safe from cyber attack?
Well, I would put it more broadly. Obviously, there's a great deal of work required to improve the capacity of countries around the globe, but obviously particularly developing countries that may not have the resources or the native expertise at times to look after their own cybersecurity. And so this is an area that I think needs to go up on the priority ranking, and that traditional donors be more supportive of operations. Among some of the hats I wear, I'm a senior advisor to ICT for Peace, an NGO that promotes the peaceful use of cyberspace, and one of its practical programs is a series of regional workshops, particularly to focus on capacity building among developing states. Not just to ensure that they have basic levels of cyber hygiene, you might say. I'm struck Professor Lim's reference to the Bank of Bangladesh being vulnerable in part because they were relying on second-hand cheap switches. I mean, obviously, to ensure that those institutions have a modicum of cybersecurity expertise is very important. I would also add part of that capacity building is also in the diplomatic field, so that these countries aren't simply passive bystanders in international discussions and negotiations, indeed, on issues of cyber governance or any matter. It's important that they are able to participate in a meaningful way, and in order for them to do that, again, there needs to be a basic level of knowledge and to inform their own efforts to promote their interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. If I may now turn to Professor Shah, I was very struck in your presentation about how you framed the debate, and there's clearly a need for a common understanding of the issues and the terminology. in order to facilitate cooperation and dialogue. It's clearly made more complex if states are talking at cross purposes. To what extent do you think the current international processes are achieving a common understanding so that states and private entities can work together to solve these cyber problems?
That's a very good question. One of the things that encouraged a lot of those participants in Dubai 2012 that wanted to see what's normally called a, how should I phrase it? But there was an important follow-up to the Dubai failure, should we say, that is the United States Department of Commerce formally gave up control of ICANN, I-C-A-N-N, but basically it's a long acronym, and that's encouraging to some of the developing countries or others that are less powerful than the United States. Mind you, cyber cooperation is very challenging. It reminds me of the World Health Organization. In the name of capacity building or fighting against the spread of disease. Let me finish this. I have a point. For instance, 2007, the Indonesian government was asked to turn in sample viruses so that those developers of vaccine that were approved by the World Health Organization could analyze. Of course, the samples was free, but the vaccine was not. And the Indonesian government came up with the name viral sovereignty and refused to do that. We are in a similar situation in the cyber realm because at the end of the day, it comes at, and it has to do with the code, the software, the facilities. It's not just diplomats or scholars like me. We can talk endless, but some facilities have to be replaced on the ground for security. And when you have what's generally understood between this notion of so-called multi-stakeholder approach to global cyber governance, it's sort of like those few vaccine companies that control the process. And those are the companies that are verified to be capable of. Those are the companies that reap profits out of it. They would never, it's what's called hungry marketing, right? They would never make enough vaccine for you to go effective. You have to come back. So it's we need to be very realistic, frankly speaking, because there is money to be made, there is greed, and there is a lot of things to profit out of fear. Let's put it that way. Okay?
Thank you very much. Professor Im, I'm very interested in the issue of attribution as it relates to verification, which is my own organization's work. Of course, verification is usually done by states parties with perhaps a monitoring organization, an international organization, subject to international law, where the activity is specifically prohibited. And it seems that the international environment we're in doesn't effectively prohibit many of these activities. So given that we don't have a multilateral agreement that covers all of these sorts of cyber issues that we're seeking to prevent and suppress, we need to think about how reliable this verification of attribution of malware attacks and so on is when we're considering what countermeasures to take, because how severe are the countermeasures? What is the proportionality and appropriateness in the absence of an international agreement that has this kind of dispute resolution mechanism? So I guess I'm asking you, what sort of global governance system do you see is appropriate to have in place to deal with verified attacks?
I'll speak in Korean. 이번 그 워너크라이 멜웨어 같은 경우에 이것을 밝힌 것은 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 시만텍 그리고 카스퍼스키 그리고 한국의 하울이라고 하는 보안업체였습니다. 이들이 사실은 이런 자기들이 가지고 있는 역량을 과시하고 하는 것은 마켓에서 자기들의 몸값을 높이기 위해서 한 거고 인텔리전스 쪽에서도 나름 분석을 했겠지만 그들은 자기의 역량을 갖다 감추기 위해서 감추고 있습니다. 왜냐하면 사이버 무기라고 하는 것은 우리가 사이버 스페이스에서는 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 이미 피지컬 스페이스보다 더 많은 어떤 여러 가지 이익을 얻을 수 있습니다. 코리아의 경우에 보면 전체 뱅킹 어떤 서비스의 80%가 모바일 인터넷으로 이루어지고 있고 그 다음에 마켓에서 여러 가지 그 물건 구매라든지 이런 것의 경우에도 이미 피지컬 어떤 스토어를 갖다가 압도하고 있습니다. SNS의 영향력은 말할 것도 없죠. 그렇기 때문에 이러한 그 사이버를 통해서 범죄자들이 그리고 각국이 어떤 얻을 수 있는 것은 워낙 많기 때문에 이것의 범위는 점점 커지고 있는데 문제는 사이버 무기나 사이버 방법은 한 번 공개가 되면 바로 분석이 돼가지고 두 번 쓸 수 없습니다. 그래서 사이버 무기는 한 번밖에 쓸 수 없기 때문에 이것의 경우는 사실 국제 간의 협력이 이루어지기 어려운 분야입니다. 그래서 제가 아까 국가 간에 있어서 트러스트 빌딩이 중요하다고 말씀드렸고 그래서 이 부분에 있어서는 사실은 굉장히 어려운 문제가 있고 또 하나는 민간 쪽에 있어서 민간의 정보를 국가에 넘겨주는 것은 또 프라이버시 문제가 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 미국에서도 그러한 법을 만들었고 차이나에서도 이번에 사이버 시큐리티 액트를 만드는 것이 그런 강제적인 법이 없으면 그것이 쉽지 않은데 문제는 그런 경우에 시빌 소사이어티에서 많은 반대에 부딪히고 있고 한국의 경우에도 그러한 입법을 시도했지만 입법에 실패했습니다. 그래서 이런 문제는 사실은 국제 간에 있어서 UNGG가 1998년 시작돼서 거의 20년 동안 진행되고 있지만 거의 실질적인 어떤 진전을 이루고 있지 못하는데 UN에서 좀 더 어떤 심도 있게 실질적인 어떤 결과를 유도하기 위해서 많은 노력을 하는 것이 무엇보다 중요하다고 생각합니다.
Thank you very much. And that leads on to my general question for the panel. It seems that we're entering an era of a sort of a cyber arms race with the number of actors involved, the complexity of the malware increasing day by day. What further confidence building measures do you feel are needed to help reduce this threat, and what is the follow-on for the global governance system, following on from the group of governmental experts? What would you like to see in place in the international community to reduce the risk of cyber warfare and cyber attacks? If I may ask Brian Egan first.
I think, as a couple of my colleagues said, I think attribution is really a key to a lot of what we've been talking about today. And I think tools that governments can work on together with industry to facilitate attribution really are the name of the game. And I think that we, as governments, have gotten better at attributing attacks. Professor Lim mentioned that South Korea was able to affirmatively identify North Korea as a source of several attacks. I think it's harder as a cyber actor to hide yourself entirely when you're out there than it once was. It's still there's a way to go, but facilitating information sharing to lead to attribution, I think, is really key. So just picking up on what the previous speaker said, ensuring that privacy rules are written in a way that allows for responsible sharing to identify criminals and other malicious actors is going to be pretty important going forward.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that in terms of, and we're all too perhaps inclined to concede about cyber warfare, that this is a fundamentally different domain from the other domains which traditionally have seen military conflict, and that when we talk about weapon systems in general, these, of course, have been the exclusive preserve of governments as part of their armed forces. And you can work in the arms control history of efforts to negotiate reductions or changes in conduct. Whereas in cyberspace, this is overwhelmingly a domain of the private sector, the civil society, the individual user, and it's owned and operated by those entities. So I think a key step that's needed if we want to preserve this crucial environment that we're told we're every day increasingly dependent on for our well-being as a global society is we need to empower and to energize the stakeholders, the true stakeholders of the internet and cyberspace more broadly, to really speak up and advocate for responsible state action by their governments. Brian referred earlier to the Microsoft's efforts in this regard, which I think are to be commended. But it's going to take many others, and I see that as something that's been lacking. And though I don't want to disparage in any way the UN group of governmental experts and the reports that they have been able to do, frankly, I'm concerned that some governments have found it all too convenient to have this small 15, 20 experts meet every few years as an indication to the broad community that the problem is being handled, when in fact states have done very little to actually alter their own behavior. So we have to be wary of too facile references to the GGEs. I think it's time that we really hear from the true stakeholders and that they ensure that they can defend their and global interests this way. Thank you.
If I can just ask a follow-up then, do you see the solution as needing to be at the international level, or states just taking individual action following on from what comes out of the GGE?
Well, I mean, I think there's both. I think obviously national actors can influence their own governments, but I also think it's really vital that there be international cooperation in this realm. And can you think of anything more quintessentially international than cyberspace, really?
Professor Jha.
I'm not as cyber literate as most of the folks, virtually all of you on the panel, but it does raise serious concerns when it comes to government-corporate relationship when you talk about the cyber defense or agreeing on cyber treaties. What I have heard is that you try to outperform each other rather than agreeing on this is what the cyber companies do, right? Or inventors. That's how they get the venture capital. That's how they get market their tricks. So what kind of world do we really want? Do we want the governments to have all these guns out for hire? Or do we actually draw a distinction between government responsibility and corporate behavior? If you look at in your field, nuclear, right? For example, you look at the tracking and control, storage, or what else of fissile and other nuclear materials. You have very clearly set responsibilities. Can you imagine a situation saying, oh, all right, it's multi-stakeholders, folks, go develop your nuclear means, we'll see what happens. I doubt that would be a very responsible way of handling it.
Thank you, Professor.
최근에 제가 말씀드린 것처럼 북한의 어떤 한국에 대한 공격이라든지 아니면 러시아와 우크라이나의 분쟁이 있어서 러시아군이 우크라이나에 대한 공격 수단으로서 사이버를 사용함으로써 우크라이나의 어떤 발전소를 갖다가 멜트다운 시킨다든지 이런 것을 보는 것처럼 사이버는 이제 군사적인 측면에서 굉장한 위력을 가졌다는 것은 의심할 나위가 없고 최근에 2015년에 일본이 사이버 사령부를 만들었고 올해의 경우에 독일이 사이버 커맨드를 만든 거에 본 것처럼 G7 모든 국가가 사이버 전력을 강화하고 있습니다. 그래서 이 부분에 있어서는 그 제3세계 모든 국가들도 사이버 수단은 제3세계가 가지고 있는 값싼 사이버 핵무기다 이런 얘기까지 하고 있거든요. 그래서 이 장차 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 애토믹이나 바이올로지컬이나 케미컬 무기보다 더 큰 어떤 위력을 발휘하게 될 겁니다. 그래서 이 부분에 있어서는 올해 그 탈린 매뉴얼 2.0이 나왔는데요. 거기에는 서방 국가뿐만 아니라 중국이나 러시아도 참여했습니다. 그래서 그러한 여러 가지 오펜시브한 특히 사이버 아퍼레이션에 대해서 기존의 어떤 헤이그 협약이라든지 제네바 협약이라든지 이런 여러 가지 국제법이 적용할 수 있는 방안을 굉장히 폭넓게 얘기했고 또한 UN GG에서 제가 말씀드린 대로 중국이나 러시아가 주장한 것처럼 사이버 스페이스는 기존 피지컬 스페이스와 다르기 때문에 다른 어떤 규범을 만들어야 된다. 근데 그것이 만들어야 된다는 건 알지만 어떻게 만들어야 되는 거에서 진전이 20년 동안 안 이루어지고 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 이 사이버 위협은 실질적 위협이기 때문에 이제로부터 지금이라도 이것이 실질적인 솔루션을 갖다가 우리가 이끌어내기 위해서 어떤 좀 더 집중된 노력이 필요하다고 생각합니다.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes, Professor.
Well, I just, Andrew, if I could, because I have American Chinese colleagues on either side of me, I was curious. You know, I'm going to ask a question, and that is under the Obama administration, after considerable tensions, to put it mildly, in the bilateral cyber relationship, there was a decision to convene a high-level bilateral dialogue between the two countries relating to cybercrime and other issues. I think it was at the secretary level. I believe it met at least 2 times. And I want to know from both perspectives, is this going to, that kind of mechanism, is that going to continue under the new Trump administration? And has it proved to be helpful in reducing tensions and in coming to any kind of shared understandings about behavior by respective states? Thank you.
Just briefly, so we can take some questions.
I think it was helpful, and I think that the agreement between the two presidents in 2015 also did a lot to reduce the tensions. The group did meet towards the end of the Obama administration. I think law enforcement cooperation has really improved, and I think the Trump administration has talked about wanting to continue the dialogue. So it remains to be seen whether it will happen, but I think it's possible.
There has been an improvement in the atmospherics. Media reported a lot on China as a possible source of, or on American identification of China as a source of attack. If you recall, at the second meeting of the high-level working group, joint working group on cyber, China also asked the American side to investigate 4 cases of Chinese identification of attacks that originated from America, according to Chinese investigation capacity, to the extent of our capacity. So these things need to be reciprocal, frankly speaking. It gets lost because international journalists, it's their job. There has to be a good guy, a bad guy, right? So it will remain to be seen. If these things, it's part of, like I said, I'm an international political science professor, and I was educated in the United States. Probably I say this more with a sense of wanting the relationship to go well. And most Chinese probably would not be so stupid to say as much. Often it's the case an American company or an individual working with the media to drum up the heat. China, 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 China. And whereas legitimate or real Chinese concerns get simply blown into another universe. You can only do it so many times. And let me make it specific again. At the second meeting, before President Obama left office, the Chinese side asked the U.S. side to investigate on 4 cases of attacks that the Chinese suspect had originated from the United States. Have you ever heard about that? I know I'm being recorded.
I don't want to take any more time, but I think it was intended to be a mutual discussion, so I'm not surprised by that.
Thank you. I think we've got time for maybe one burning question from the floor at the back, sir. Yes.
It's very informative to listen to your whole presentation today. But still, I have one question for you. Yes. And I think you are talking about 2 different subjects about cybersecurity. One is the cybersecurity throughout the internet, but the topic that you are talking about is a little bit different. How to protect the national critical asset like a nuclear infrastructure, aviation system is a little bit different from the internet cybersecurity. There we have a lot of problem in Korea, not just for the aviation or the weaponry system, but for the nuclear infrastructure. I used to be in charge of that kind of job for my professional time period. For example, we understand the cybersecurity for the critical digital asset, which is not linked to internet at all. It's totally isolated. But if somebody implanted malware, it can actually destroy the function of the nuclear reactor without any problem. And how to prevent that kind of thing is a different story. And we'd like to have a close cooperation with the United States to introduce real cyber security to protect our nationwide critical infrastructure. For example, inside the nuclear power plant, there are more than 1,000 critical digital assets, and it's very difficult to protect them properly. And we need a strong support from global society, how to handle that kind of situation. And we don't see any kind of cooperation in the real world. Do you have any idea how to promulgate that kind of international cooperation?
If I may just take one final question from Lord Brown, and then the panel will respond to the comments and questions.
So you need the speaker so they can do the translation.
Thank you, Angela. I am a British politician. I was the Secretary of State for Defence in the United Kingdom. But I'm also the Vice Chairman of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, which is a very significant presence in nuclear material security. And I have an obsession about this issue.
Good for you.
So, if I may, I just want to make a couple of observations, and then I want to ask a question, and it's an impossible question to answer. But this is about what is called the Moore's Law environment. You know, it moves at a pace that no public policy process, no matter how efficient, can keep up with. So, artificial intelligence is moving at a significant pace. What Professor Lim talked about is happening in London, my city. A small computer laboratory there built this computer which beat the Go champion. It is being compared with what happened 25 years ago when IBM built a computer that beat Kasparov in chess. It's nothing like this at all. This computer that DeepMind built taught itself the game of Go. It was given the rules, and it was sent away to learn the game. And the people who built it say, this is basic stuff, and it is only at the beginning. You know, we could almost touch this computer from Parliament in the United Kingdom. We are not even thinking about how we deal with the public policy consequences of machines that are capable of doing this sort of thing. Not even thinking about it. And if we did start to think about it, even at our most functional, it would take us 3 years to get a piece of public policy legislation through, and it would immediately be redundant. And internationally, we live in an environment where governments are both perpetrators of offensive cyber operations, builders of offensive cyber operations, and arguing for defensive steps and cooperation against the exploitation of these offensive cyber operations by non-state actors, and sometimes by non-state actors in the employment of states. This is an utterly complex environment, and it's an environment in which multilateralism is deteriorating. So the United States Department of Defense tells us in a report in 2013 that every one of its resilient military systems is vulnerable to a full spectrum attack. And by deduction, every resilient military system in the world has the same vulnerability because they're at a more advanced state than everybody else. So that means that the most important piece of critical infrastructure the world has ever seen, which is the command and control of nuclear weapons, is vulnerable to attack by full spectrum cyber capability. And candidly, we have no idea how to protect these weapon systems from that, because as soon as we protect them from what you're doing today, they'll be doing something different by the time we get there. So this is a process in which we will constantly be chasing our tails. And we in the United Kingdom had an example of exactly this in WannaCry. Our National Health Service was attacked by someone who took code that was partly written by the NSA and was designed to exploit a Microsoft vulnerability in Eternal Blue, was stolen and given to the Russian shadow brokers, and they distributed it around, and then somebody built upon that. And we have no idea who it was with respect, Professor Lim, because it looked at first as though it was the North Koreans. When it was looked at again by Flashpoint, and linguistic analysis was done in the ransom notes, it's fairly convincing that the ransom note was originally written in Chinese and then translated in Google Translate. So this stuff is being reported in the BBC and all those people you put up on your screen only yesterday. So, supposing we took the North Koreans to court, they would call the same people who said it was them for the defence to say, well, actually, there's lots of other stuff that suggests it's not. So we have very little idea who to attribute these things to, and we are committing our strategic defence throughout the world for the next half century to weapon systems we can't protect.
Thank you. Who would like to respond to these comments and questions?
Well, maybe I could just get us started in terms of cooperation on nuclear power plant cybersecurity. I think there's some good material. Des Brown referred to the NTI Nuclear Threat Initiative has done recent work on that. Chatham House in the UK has also done. This is open source reporting. I suspect that the Nuclear Operators Association, if they're not, they should be. And there's been some effort in the IAEA, but I dare say it's at a pretty preliminary level, a sort of yes, we commit ourselves to do more, but we haven't quite figured out what more is to be. I won't. Des Brown's somewhat apocalyptic, depictions are sobering, and obviously animated my own comments that maybe in some areas it's best to just get rid of the system altogether rather than trying to devise ways to ensure its cyber integrity going forward.
Very quickly, and then we
just one final word. I'm fascinated with this idea of
comparing what we face in the cyber world in terms of threat to viruses in real life. So with that, there are two lessons we need to bear in mind. One is constantly strengthen ourselves, improve our own hygiene, and defend against the next wave of virus. The second is that cooperation has to be real and serious, and it doesn't matter if you have a strong or weak military, it doesn't matter what political system ideology, because very much like bird flus, it does travel. We all get affected. So, and related to that, it does take real terminology, real terminologists like in the cyber world that takes real experts on all sides. Both. Let's begin on the bilateral front. It's not just with one country, but with all countries that get to resolve one issue after another, I guess, beginning with cyber crimes.
Thank you very much. I think our expert panellists have given us excellent food for thought in their presentations and the follow-on discussion. I think we are all energised now to take action in our respective spheres to strengthen cybersecurity. So it just leaves me now to thank very much our panellists and you for attending. Thank you.